The grand ballroom was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and the hum of conversation. It was a night to remember, a charity gala held in honor of war veterans who had sacrificed so much for their country. The event was one of the biggest of the year, with important figures in attendance, including business leaders, celebrities, and politicians. But the guest of honor that evening was none other than former President Donald Trump. He had been invited as a special guest to show his support for the veterans and help raise funds for the cause. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and anticipation. People were eager to see what the night would bring. Everyone was dressed in their finest, with the room decorated in elegant lights, shining like stars above the crowd. It was a night dedicated to those who had given everything for their country, and there was a feeling of unity and respect that hung in the air. As the evening progressed, speeches were given by various veterans, each sharing stories of courage, sacrifice, and honor. Every story tugged at the hearts of those listening. But there was a particular buzz in the room about one special performance that everyone was waiting for, a song that would be sung by a war veteran who had been through unimaginable challenges. No one knew what to expect from this performance, but whispers around the room hinted that it would be something special. The veteran, a man named Jack, had written the song himself. He wasn't a professional singer, but he had served in the military for years, and his love for music had helped him cope with the struggles he faced during and after his service. People were curious to hear what he had prepared for the night. As the evening drew closer to performance, all eyes turned toward the stage. The room grew quieter as people waited for what was sure to be one of the highlights of the gala. Jack had always been a humble man. He didn't see himself as a hero, even though he had served multiple tours in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. He had seen things most people couldn't imagine and had lost friends along the way. Despite everything, Jack remained a quiet, strong figure, someone who didn't seek attention or praise. When he was asked to perform at the charity gala, Jack hesitated at first. He wasn't sure if he could do it. Singing in front of so many people, especially in front of someone like Donald Trump, was intimidating. But this wasn't about him. It was about his fellow veterans, those who couldn't be there that night because they had made the ultimate sacrifice. Jack wanted to honor them in the best way he knew how, through his music. Jack's song wasn't just any song. It was something deeply personal to him, a piece he had written during one of the darkest times in his life. After returning from his last deployment, Jack struggled with memories of the war. The sights, the sounds, and the loss of his brothers in arms haunted him day and night. Music became his way of processing the pain, and this song had come to him during one of those sleepless nights. As he stood backstage, waiting for his turn to perform, Jack took a deep breath. He could hear the faint sound of applause as the speaker before him finished. His heart raced, but he knew this moment wasn't about him. It was about honoring the fallen, the ones who couldn't sing their own songs. The lights dimmed as Jack stepped onto the stage. The room fell into a hush as he stood at the microphone, guitar in hand. There was something about the way he carried himself, a quiet strength that commanded attention. Jack didn't need any introduction. The audience already knew who he was and why he was there. He began to strum the first chords of his song, and the sound echoed through the ballroom. The melody was simple, but it carried a weight of emotion that was hard to describe. As Jack's voice filled the room, the lyrics began to tell a story of lost love and hope. It was clear that this wasn't just a song. It was Jack's heart laid bare for everyone to see. The audience sat in silence, captivated by the raw emotion in Jack's voice. His song spoke of the battles he had fought, not just overseas but within himself. He sang about his fallen brothers, the ones who didn't make it home, and the guilt he carried for surviving when they didn't. The words were powerful, and as they hung in the air, it was clear that they were touching everyone in the room. Donald Trump, who had been sitting near the front, listened intently. He had met many veterans over the years and had always shown his respect for their service, but something about Jack's performance struck a chord with him. It wasn't just the words or the music. It was the sincerity in Jack's voice, the way he poured his soul into every note. As the song continued, you could feel the tension building in the room. The emotions were palpable, and it was clear that Jack was taking everyone on a journey through his experiences. People were on the edge of their seats, not wanting to miss a single moment of the performance. As Jack reached the final verse of his song, the room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The weight of the words seemed to hang in the air, touching everyone who listened. Jack's voice, though steady, was filled with emotion. This was more than just a performance. It was a tribute to the fallen heroes who couldn't be there that night. When the last note faded away, there was a moment of complete silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that felt awkward or uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with respect, as if the entire room needed a moment to process what they had just witnessed. Jack stood on the stage, his eyes cast downward. He wasn't looking for applause or recognition. In fact, he seemed lost in his own thoughts, perhaps thinking of his comrades who had never made it back home. Then, suddenly, the silence was broken by the sound of clapping. At first, it was just a few people, but soon the entire room erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, giving Jack the standing ovation he deserved. But even in that moment of praise, Jack remained humble, nodding his head in gratitude before stepping off the stage. As Jack walked off the stage, something happened that no one expected. Donald Trump, known for his tough exterior, was visibly moved. Tears welled up in his eyes as he clapped along with the rest of the audience. It was a rare moment of vulnerability from a man who had always been seen as strong and unshakable. Trump wasn't the only one who was touched by the performance. All around the room, people were wiping away tears, deeply moved by Jack's song and the story it told. But Trump's reaction was what caught everyone's attention. As Donald Trump sat there, clapping with tears in his eyes, the entire room could feel the weight of the moment. It wasn't something anyone had expected from the former president. Trump, known for his brashness and firm demeanor, was often seen as unshakable, someone who didn't let his emotions show in public. But tonight was different. Jack's song had broken through that tough exterior and revealed a side of Trump that many had never seen before, a side of him that felt deeply for the veterans, for their sacrifices, and for the pain they carried. The cameras in the room, which had been focused on the stage during Jack's performance, now panned over to Trump. His face was etched with emotion, his eyes glistening as he sat there, silently reflecting on the powerful message in Jack's song. He wiped away a tear with his hand, clearly moved by the raw, heartfelt tribute to the men and women who had given everything for their country. As the applause finally began to die down, Trump stood up from his seat. The entire room fell silent once again as everyone watched him walk toward the stage. It was clear that Trump had something to say, and no one wanted to miss a word. As he approached the microphone, his usual confident stride was replaced by a slower, more deliberate pace. He paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts before speaking. When he finally began to speak, his voice was softer than usual, filled with genuine emotion. I've met many veterans in my life, and I've always had the greatest respect for the sacrifices they've made, Trump began. But tonight, Jack reminded me of something I think we all forget sometimes. These men and women didn't just fight battles on the battlefield. They've been fighting battles ever since they came home. And Jack, your song, it reminded me of that. It reminded all of us of the pain, the loss, and the strength that it takes to keep going after everything you've been through. There was a pause as Trump's voice wavered slightly, another sign of how deeply the song had affected him. He cleared his throat before continuing. Jack, you're a hero, not just for your service, but for sharing your story with us tonight. Your words, your music, they touched all of our hearts. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. As Trump spoke, Jack stood off to the side of the stage, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. He had never wanted to be in the spotlight. He had written the song for his fallen comrades, not for himself. But as he listened to Trump's heartfelt words, Jack couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. He had always felt that the stories of veterans needed to be heard, and tonight, it seemed like his song had done just that. When Trump finished speaking, the audience once again erupted into applause. But this time, It wasn't just for Jack. It was for the message he had delivered through his song, a message of resilience, honor, and hope. Jack took a deep breath before stepping back onto the stage. He didn't have a prepared speech, and he wasn't used to addressing large crowds. But as he stood there, looking out at the sea of faces, he realized that this was his moment to say something meaningful. "Thank you," Jack began, his voice low but steady. "I'm not a man of many words, but I want to say that this song, it's not about me. It's about the ones who didn't make it home. It's about the brothers and sisters I lost, the ones who gave their lives for this country. They're the real heroes, and they're the ones this song was written for." The room was silent as Jack spoke, every person hanging on his every word. "I never expected this kind of response," he continued. "I wrote this song during a time when I didn't know how to deal with the things I'd seen, the things I'd been through. Music was my way of coping. And tonight, I'm just grateful that I could share it with all of you." Jack looked over at Trump, who was still standing near the microphone. "Mr. Trump," Jack said, his voice filled with sincerity, "thank you for your kind words. It means a lot to me and to all the veterans out there. But I want to say, this song isn't just for the veterans. It's for everyone who's ever lost someone, for everyone who's ever had to keep going in the face of pain and loss." There was a long pause as Jack looked out at the audience one last time. "Thank you," he said simply, before stepping away from the microphone. The charity gala continued that night, but there was no doubt that Jack's performance had left a lasting impact on everyone in the room. People continued to talk about the emotional song and Trump's heartfelt reaction long after the event had ended. It became the defining moment of the evening, one that would be remembered for years to come. For Jack, the response to his song was overwhelming. He had never expected to touch so many people with his music, but now he realized just how powerful his story could be. He was contacted by veterans organizations, media outlets, and people from all walks of life who had been moved by his song. Jack's story had struck a chord not just with veterans, but with anyone who had ever faced hardship and loss. As for Donald Trump, his emotional reaction to Jack's song became a talking point in the days that followed. It was rare to see him so openly moved, and it reminded people that no matter how tough someone may seem, there are moments that can break through and touch even the hardest of hearts. The charity gala had achieved its goal of raising money for veterans, but more than that, it had shone a light on the emotional struggles that so many veterans face after they return home. Jack's song became a symbol of hope and healing, a reminder that no matter how difficult the journey, there is always a way to keep moving forward. And in the end, it wasn't just about the performance or the applause. It was about the message. Jack's song had brought a room full of people together, reminding them of the sacrifices made by those who serve and the strength it takes to keep going. And for one night, that message brought even the toughest man in the room to tears. In the days following the charity gala, Jack's performance became more than just a moment in time. News outlets across the country began covering the story, highlighting not only his powerful song, but the unexpected reaction from Donald Trump. It wasn't every day that the former president, known for his tough guy persona, showed such raw emotion in public. For many, it was a reminder that even the most powerful people have a heart, that they too can be deeply moved by the sacrifices of everyday heroes like Jack. Social media buzzed with clips of the performance, and soon, Jack's song became a viral sensation. Veterans and their families reached out to Jack, thanking him for giving a voice to their struggles. Messages poured in from around the world, people sharing their own stories of loss, pain, and the strength it took to move forward. Jack's humble act had resonated far beyond the walls of that gala. It had touched the hearts of millions. But amidst the media attention and praise, Jack remained grounded. He didn't care about the fame or the attention. For him, it had always been about the message. His only hope was that the song would continue to spread awareness about the struggles veterans faced, both on the battlefield and in their everyday lives. He wanted the world to know that the fight didn't end when soldiers returned home. For many, the hardest battles were the ones they fought within. Jack continued to receive invitations to perform at other events, Many of them focus on supporting veterans and their families. He accepted some, but always with the same humility and purpose that had driven him to write the song in the first place. His focus remained on using his music to bring healing and hope, not only to veterans but to anyone who needed it. As for Donald Trump, the night had a profound effect on him as well. In interviews following the event, he spoke openly about how Jack's song had touched him. He acknowledged that it had reminded him of the real cost of war, not just the lives lost, but the lives forever changed. Trump expressed his deep respect for veterans, pledging to continue supporting them in any way he could. For those who had been in the room that night, the memory of Jack's song and Trump's emotional response would never fade. It became a story they told again and again, not just because of the powerful performance, but because it had shown them something unexpected, a rare glimpse of vulnerability in a man known for his strength, and a reminder of the healing power of music. Jack's story became more than just a performance at a gala. It became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is hope. His song continued to inspire, bringing people together and helping them find the strength to keep going, no matter the challenges they faced. And in the end, that's all Jack had ever wanted. He didn't need the fame or the recognition. All he needed was to know that his song had made a difference. And it had, in ways he could never have imagined. Through his music, Jack had touched the hearts of millions, and for one night, he had brought even the strongest of men to tears.